Hi, I'm Bob Henderson. I'm the Nomad Dad. I'm going to comment some more today on the passing parade, what I call the passing parade, some of the things going on in our society today. I think I talked to you last time about when my gut tells me things aren't right. That's when I begin to get concerned. It's a special feeling. Maybe you have it too. I'm told that people get it in different parts of the body. But when something's wrong, that's where I get it, right in my gut. And it's not a pleasant feeling. And right now, I think one of the biggest problems in our society, it's not just in the U.S., but I think maybe primarily so in the U.S., is this censorship thing. You know, if the government censors, it's a violation of the First Amendment rights. But we're not entirely seeing it from the government. They're working in cahoots with corporations. But you're seeing a lot of institutions kind of censor people and the whole, cancel you and that sort of thing. And it hasn't always been that way. And I want to illustrate that point a little bit more in a moment. I've been saying for some time, with all the problems in the country today, we're in a situation where things, haven't been pleasant for quite some time. It's the fourth turning. It's a time in history that's rather dark and ominous, and the whole thing could go one way or the other. I think we're getting close to the inflection point. But the point is, there's a lot of turbulence and uncertainty around the world. This censorship thing has not been an issue in my lifetime, and I've been here for more years than I'd like to think. I've been saying for some time that this thing begins to get fixed when somebody on the left, on the political spectrum, on the left, gets up and says, enough. Stop the world, I want to get off. We're not going to pass this point anymore. We've got to stop this stuff. Because I don't think anybody's going to listen to anyone on the right. I think it's going to have to come from somebody on the left. So in the last few months, we've had a guy on the left who has started to speak out about some of these things, and he's vilified by the establishment on the left. I'm talking about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's about my age. And his uncle, for heaven's sakes, was the president of the United States in the 1960s. And if you were around in the 60s, it was Camelot. It's, this is the most wonderful thing that we just adore the Kennedys. And after John Kennedy is president, then his brother Bobby, who happens to be the father of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his father was assassinated running for president in 1968. And then his other uncle, Teddy Kennedy, who was a lion of the Senate for years and a man of the left. And the establishment is vilifying Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, there are quite a few things I wouldn't agree with him on, but there's some things that I really do agree with him on. And he's talking about the move toward authoritarianism. And the thing I really agree with him on is he says, you know what, why can't we debate these issues? Nobody wants to debate in the establishment. And if you move 1 inch from the consensus, off with your head. They're the modern day Jacobins, the people in the French Revolution that ultimately could never be politically correct enough. Just ask Robespierre, off with your head at the guillotine. And that's what we're looking at today. And this is a terrible development because we need to debate these major issues. And we need to do it civilly. But I don't want people calling you names because that's what always happens. They'll call you this, they'll call you that, and they stop the conversation dead in its tracks, and nothing gets solved. I think RFK Jr. is onto something, and I just hope he keeps going. But he is a threat to the establishment right now. As I said, it's not always been this way. And I know RFK Jr. remembers this song. I was in my early high school years in 1967, and there was a song called For What It's Worth. It was written by Stephen Stills, and it was performed by a group called Buffalo Springfield. Neil Young was one of the members, and Stills and Young later on became a very famous band. I believe they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And so here's this song called For What It's Worth, and I think that the words still hold sway today. Let me read it to you. The lyrics, there's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. It's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street. Singing songs and carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep. Into your life it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the men come take you away. So they were lamenting the establishment in the late 1960s. These people were part of the counterculture. I didn't often agree with them. They were protesting, of course, the Vietnam War, but much else. I didn't always agree, but I thought it was great that they could speak up. And today, and Neil Young is the poster child for censorship. Here's the guy that a couple of years ago wanted to take fellow leftist Joe Rogan off Spotify because Rogan dared move off the reservation half an inch. He said something that Neil Young did not agree with, and off with his head. It's ridiculous. How are you going to possibly solve problems if you can't have a debate? So the song, For What It's Worth, I think holds sway today. It hasn't always been this way, yet the very people that were lamenting the fact that they couldn't speak up or they'd be taken out of line and effectively canceled in today's terms, they're the ones that are the most steadfast in wanting to censor opinions they don't agree with. That is tremendously anti-American. You know, America with the First Amendment, we're one of the very few countries in the world with it. Now, you're not going to see it in Europe, not in Canada, nearby. It is a wonderful thing to have. It's the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights says the government shall not, the government will not. It's your individual freedom. The government cannot abridge your free speech. And quite frankly, beyond the government, these other people, the institutions, the companies that want to shut you down, it is a terrible development. And so I think it still has to be somebody from the left who gets up and says, stop the world, I want to get off. We're not going to cross this line. On the other hand, we also need to have what I would call a Patrick Henry moment. You remember him in American history back in the 1770s talking to the delegates in the legislature in his native Virginia, in the colony. And he wanted to move ahead with a revolution. And keep in mind that back then there were many people that sided with the British, and those that wanted to break away from Britain were a minority. And Henry was saying, Patrick Henry was saying, no, we got to move forward. We got to push forward. In his speech, he said, as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And I think those words are prescient today. So is it going to be somebody on the left? Well, I think it's going to have to be. And maybe it's RFK Jr. or somebody like that who essentially says, give me liberty or give me death. This whole thing has to stop. We're ruining this society for everybody. I'm Bob Henderson. I'm the Nomad Dad. We'll see you next time.